But
let's not get there.
In the meantime, Alex, if you could play the recap from yesterday and kick things off as we recap OTA number 5 down at Allen Park yesterday. We are down here kicking off June and OTA number 5 at Allen Park with the Detroit Lions. This morning started with Dan Campbell speaking to getting back to the basics. This is the Lions' goal this spring as we're looking at minicamp and OTAs.
Back to the basics of what we did last year, and let's do them better. Let's just fundamentally get a little bit better, a little sharper with it. And so that's the tug of war we play right now.
Ben Johnson came in the room shortly after and echoed nearly everything Coach Campbell had to say.
Year 2 for us as an offense, it really becomes less about learning the system all over again. It's more our theme this springtime has been back to the basics. And so we've been harping consistently on the fundamentals.
That's all we have for you down at Allen Park today. Lots to look forward to this Lions season and how they take these basics out onto the field. So yesterday was very busy. It was great down at Allen Park. Obviously got to hear a lot from Dan Campbell and Ben Johnson. So that's kind of where I want to kick off the conversation reviewing yesterday. So as I mentioned in the video and as you heard from Dan Campbell, their main focus this spring is those building blocks, creating that foundation. He said, you got to get good at the stuff fundamentally first. And like they did good last year, but they didn't do good enough.
Right.
And that they're in this battle of how much do they focus on the fundamentals and perfecting what they did last year versus adding new things to the playbook. So they're finding that balance, and then Ben Johnson spoke a little bit more to that, saying that, you know, they're going to focus on the fundamentals right now, especially in the spring, and then you may see them implement some new work once training camp comes around. But until then, focusing on the fundamentals, which I believe they need to do, as we kind of have seen with the offense struggling yesterday.
I think there's nothing I love more than coaches that demand everything out of players.
Perfection.
Whether or not they're elite, top 3, I don't care about the ranking, but coaches that demand excellence every rep of practice is one of my favorite things. And almost always, not always, I mean there are examples where it doesn't work, but you know, those coaches typically find more success than the ones that don't do it. So I love what I'm hearing and seeing out of camp from Gabby, Broder, all the reports they're doing. No problem. The offense struggling, oh well.
Yeah.
Tough shit, don't care. I really don't mind. Ben Johnson looks ready for action. They will be ready. I know the Jared Goff and Jameson Williams connection had its down moments yesterday. We'll get to that next.
Yeah.
But just focusing on the offense as a whole, they added a new tight end, a new running back, and they're going to want to get them involved.
And the rookies.
It's going to take time. So I'm not going to sit here on, June 2nd and say, boys, it's a 6-win season.
Yeah,
Offense is fucked. Not doing that.
They'll be all right. And also, Sam Laporta. I saw clips of him yesterday popping up on social media. He looked good, and he looked smooth at tight end. How did he look yesterday?
Consistent.
I know you like dudes that are smooth.
Okay. Well, why'd you got to go there? But
You
Gabby,
said it.
Consistent. And Matt had the opportunity to go last week, and he spoke about, you know, how electric he was, how consistent he was, and I think one of the best things is consistency, and that's what Dan Campbell and Ben Johnson are looking for. So if he's showing up in the 2 times that the media has been able to be there and he's been consistent, then you can only imagine that he's showing up and being consistent day in and day out. You know, it's very enlightening to hear how much Dan Campbell and Ben Johnson are on the same page, and also the self-correction that Ben Johnson touched on. He said, you know, last year I micromanaged, and my goal this year is to not micromanage, to step back. They know what they're doing. They trust. Step back, maybe not the right word. That's me paraphrasing. Okay. So,
I'll cry.
That he has to trust more was his words.
I like that.
He has to trust more. They know his language, and now he has to trust.
They have to earn his trust. Is that a better way of saying it?
Sure.
Is that fair? Because I think it matters. I think you should micro when you're an OC and you have a very complex offense, and you now have 2 rookies being added, and you're trying to get everybody on the same page. But
exactly.
I don't mind it.
But in terms of the players that have been working with him,
they're all on the same page.
And who better to have at quarterback than Jared Goff, who pretty much knows his offense. I'd like the back of his hand. And Sam Laporta brought this up. I don't know if it was probably a week or two ago, last time you guys were there, but he talked about how he made some mistakes initially, and the coaches were on his ass about it. But it kind of shows how complex Ben Johnson's offense at the end of the day is. So if you can get it, once you get it, they'll be all right. But that's why they target guys that love football, because the complex offense they have already. Even last year, we always talk about the offense. It's not catered to one guy. Whoa. It's Amon-Ra St. Brown, and then who's ever open.
There's a system.
Right.
You follow it. Here are your reads. Who's open? Get him the ball. I love that. I love that
Works
more
for Jared
than anything.
Goff.
But why is the offense struggling? And maybe it is because, and you guys are going to call me an asshole, but maybe it is because last year the receivers and everybody was lining up against Jeff Okudah and the secondary they had last year. And maybe this year it's a bit different because you got Cameron Sutton.
It's a good defense. Better
you got
defense.
C.J. Gardner-Johnson, Brian Branch out there, Tracy Walker hopefully returning for camp. I know he's not out there now, but Kirby Joseph, who looks like an absolute unit right now. He looks in great shape.
Yeah.
The secondary's a lot better. I would hope they're struggling. That actually is a sign of encouragement for me in the hopes that this defense can take a huge step forward this season.
Well, you got to think, too, the offense facing the defense last year was a very different defense. To your point, they're probably just torching the defense.
That's what I'm saying.
Now you have a good offense who was top 5 last year, who's facing, I think, a top half defense with the Detroit Lions. So it's iron sharpens iron is essentially what it is.
Which we also saw with the kickers yesterday.
By the way, go into that, because I was reading the article, and I don't know, I would want to call Lucas out on this because they know how I feel about Badgley. Listen, Badgley's okay.
Don't call out the social media team. It's not nice.
No, Lucas, if you're listening, you know who I'm talking to you.
He's listening.
Michael Badgley, he's solid, but Parker Romo was out there, and he essentially couldn't miss till the 62?
He went 6 for 7, and he missed. The only one he missed was at 63.
And that's the undrafted player from the XFL, correct? Okay, well, watch out for Parker Romo.
I hate the last name. I don't want him. I hope he gets cut.
Got it right, 61. They went through perfect. He was spot on, and they all seemed to stay pretty center for the most part. Very clear. And then you have also Riley Patterson, who was 5 for 7. He missed at 47 and 57.
But he made the 63.
No, they had Parker.
Only Parker had a nuke. That makes sense.
Yeah, and again, guys, this is like OTAs. No one's saying that they're hitting big time kicks. Yeah. But at least the kicker position, we look at Badgley, and although it's figured out to some extent, I don't think Badgley's the future. It's why they got Riley Patterson. So, and he beat out Riley Patterson at least yesterday. So something to watch. Undrafted out of the XFL.
The options there are going to be very interesting as we get closer and closer. But I mean, it was fun to see them out there because they turned it into an entire competition between the offense and the defense. Each kicker represented one, and then Patterson losing led to the defense having to hold a plank on the field. And keep in mind, it was 102 degrees, and there is no shade out there.
Wow.
And then they had to do that.
Let me ask you this. Last year, we all got to watch on Hard Knocks how energetic OTAs were, how excited everybody was, pumped up. Jamal Williams crying in the middle of the huddle. Is that the same thing this year? Or is it more professional, dialed in, working on chemistry, working on sharpening up and cleaning up a few mistakes that maybe they have, kinks in the offense or defense? Are they more professional this year? And I don't mean that they weren't last year, but are they more focused on what their objective is compared to last year, the rah-rah, trying to pump everybody up, we're sick of losing, I'm going to fucking cry for this shit, Is it different? Are the huddles different this year? Is the communication after a drill finishes more disciplined, focus, demanding excellence instead of just talking about how we all want to win games this year?
Well, I will say they are far from where we can stand. So we're not getting the ins and outs of their conversations, but the feeling out there, I would say, is balanced. So you're getting that same Lions energy that everyone loved seeing last year on Hard Knocks, but you're also seeing a team that I believe knows that they can be dangerous this next season. They're working hard, they're running through those drills, and then when they're walking off the field, as we saw with Goff and JMO yesterday, when a mistake did happen, they're having those conversations afterwards as to how they can fix what just happened, what just went wrong. But then at the same time, you have Kirby Joseph, who I believe he got an interception, and then there was this whole celebration afterwards.
Did he do a backflip?
No backflip. He's
Okay.
like figuring out, he did say he's figuring out what his celebration is going to be this year within what is allowed by the NFL.
He can't do a backflip?
I don't believe he can this year.
Man.
I don't believe he can. So he's trying to figure out what is next for his celebration. But there was still that camaraderie and that energy. And of course, Dan Campbell was down in the center of the team planking with them when they had to plank. So, you know, he's still up to those same antics. But you could tell there was a little bit more, not gravity, but they seemed more grounded this year. That they know that they're trying to prove themselves and they're putting their heads down and they're going to work.
So I got to ask, I got to get right to the meat and potatoes. Mm-hmm. What was Hendon Hooker doing? What's he up to?
That's the
it's
meat and
very
potatoes,
interesting.
bro.
That's what
seeing-
everyone wants to hear. Hendon
mean-
Hooker.
Is it?
Come on, let's be real.
Yes and no, because he's
No.
on the long list of 15, 16 that didn't participate yesterday. But he's out there and he's with
I guess
the
what was he
quarterback
doing?
group.
Just hanging out by
He's with the
Ben?
quarterback
Okay,
group.
cool.
Holding clipboards, baby.
They're keeping them all together. Was not holding a clipboard at any point yesterday.
All right.
But involved, and when they're running those drills, he's standing right there with that core quarterback group, and they spent most of their time together yesterday, I would say, for over half of that practice, all as a core. So they're
That's
definitely
awesome.
finding that chemistry, and I think that is the biggest thing right now this spring is finding that chemistry, and we saw that with the issues in the offense. So there's still room to improve, but it's early and promising. A lot of good things going on, a lot of good starts, and it goes back. A lot of good fundamentals that they're instilling now that I think we will see pay off for those moments when, like Ben Johnson said, that they could have done more.